out and practice our skill and compete in our skill, and then everything is going to be hunky-dory. I mean, it's more emotional at that stage.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get into a fight for a reason, and you're going to beat people up, and you want to hurt people.
Yeah.
And it was not like all these people have turned the UFC into like a sport and a skill, which is understandable. That's fine. But our point of view at that point in time, we were from the street and fighting, and like it's kind of been taken over. Everything in the UFC now is like the sport of amateur wrestling with punches, you know, and you got submission, and then you got this whole contingency of people that want to be tough guys. And they run around and like, oh, you don't know this, and you don't know leg locks, and you don't know submission. And I brought it up before. You have to have fighter's fortitude. I know a guy that basically I know many that just basically have a skill set of high school wrestling, but because they're mentally tough ass kickers, they can get out there and get down. But but it helps to have a good wrestling background. And Paul is obviously an All-American from Nebraska.
You know, with that, Stubble, Dave, so when the fighting, I loved how you said that, because here's how it was. You had guys that were in different types of martial arts, right? And then Dave was the first real, in my eyes, and I've been in this sport since then up, and I'm still in it. So I've watched this evolution take place for the last 4 decades. And I still yet to meet a group kind of like the group that Dave that had been encompassed around the Tank Abbott era, right? And around Dave in particular. It's because when we went to a fight, everybody else was going into the fight and they were like, okay, let's get all of our masters and our black belts and let's all just get together and let's get focused and let's practice our technique and hit our pads. And we were sitting around drinking going, the first guy that I see from their camp, we're going to shellac his ass. We're taking him out. Like the first one. And Dave would be like, you guys, I got to get through this. I can't get thrown out. Don't do anything. And we'd just be chomping at the bit going, the first guy I see, I'm taking out. And that was the mentality. It was different.
Yeah, and Paul, but this is important because I got the negative comment clowns.
Yeah.
And McCartney and his contingency of clowns. They all run around saying I was drinking and the whole 9 yards. I did not drink until the show was over. So like McCartney, all his little things, he says, oh boy, he was drunk and he was this and that. McCartney's never seen me drunk. Trying to pull my name through the mud. What a donut, man. I'm serious. That guy's right up there with Tito in the wits world. But as far as me drinking all the time and I was out of my mind, you guys, I wasn't drinking whatsoever. I did my drinking, but my drinking, I had all my stuff taken care of. And before the fight, there was no drinking. So all you guys can make up your little funny stories about, not you, Paul, but these negative comment clowns about, oh, yeah, oh, he was drunk. Oh, yeah. Paul was with me the whole time. You ever seen me drunk before the fight, Paul?
No.
I mean, this is like, that's kind of the high school stuff that these guys bring up. I was a very disciplined person.
No, we trained. We went all over the world. We were all over the world, all over the nation, training with the best in the world, lifting, running. Like we are on a great training regimen.
Yes, and but after the show was done, woohoo, let's have fun. Period.
Oh man, I would say I always needed a vacation from the vacation because and I'd usually end up almost in the hospital. Honestly, I'd seriously, I'd be like, oh, this, you know.
Yeah. I'm a
But yeah, it was
hardcore person.
a lot
I'm a
of fun.
hardcore person, and anything I do hardcore, I do. Obviously, it costs me my liver.
Yeah.
But as far as
Paul, you
me,
actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tank. As far
yeah,
as your rumors about you
yeah,
drinking.
no, as far as me being drunk all the time, what a jack off. Sit there and say that. And then he says, oh, like I didn't, he contradicts himself all the time. And all these people go, oh, well, I kind of believe him because he's the ref and he's a cop. I don't tell stories, man. I tell it the way it is. I don't need to get myself over. These everything that McCartney says, he says to get himself over. I don't need to get over. He's just a little. He's like one of the goons from high school that took a martial arts class, which happened to be jujitsu, and they made him a ref. I mean, really, I'm sorry I'm going off on this tangent, but who the hell is who's Big John? He's a referee, like I discussed this on the other things. That's like talking about Robbie the ring builder, man. Who cares? It's like he's a nobody, and he's an arm wrestler, so he knows about fighting. Obviously, he couldn't do anything in the Gracie thing. How come he's never been in a fight? How's your thing? I'm gonna let it be. I'm sorry, I'm going off on this rant. Talk about just
Paul,
talk about
how did you recruit Tito Ortiz into wrestling in high school? Because I understand you're the one that was actually coaching at his high school, and you recruited him. And I guess I don't know how you guys all connected with Tito eventually, but
Yeah.
maybe you could explain that.
Yeah. So I was at Huntington Beach, and in the ALC. It was called the Alternative Learning Center, which was the remedial classes, which were the kids that were. No, it's the truth.
I know. I'm just laughing.
And basically, I was in ALC, the Alternative Learning Center, around, and so there was a couple of classes where and so when I first got there, I had already been coaching as a graduate assistant at Nebraska for that year, for a year, and then an undergrad for a year, and so I was like, you know what, and the way to go in was, you find out who's on campus and you find out who the toughest kids are, right? And so I start looking around, and this name keeps coming up, Eric Escobedo. He was a real good wrestler, and Tito. These names kept coming up. So I went on the hunt looking for some of the tougher kids in the school so that I could form a wrestling, a good wrestling program. And we actually end up placing in masters and winning CIF, and doing well in state as well as a team. But that's how I actually came across Tito, and Eric at that time. That's how I met. Came to meet him.
So, Tank, how did you become involved in that? Was that through Paul as well, with your relationship with Tito?
Unfortunately, sorry, Tank.
That's why my wallet was left a little lighter, and my alcohol. He used to break into my house and take all my booze and stuff when I was out and about. But yeah, no, Paul is around the 200 mark, and I needed some bigger guys, and Tito has a bigger frame, even though he fights whatever, is it light heavyweight nowadays? I don't know what it is. They didn't have weight classes or anything like that, and so Paul's all, I got this kid, you could use him, and you need training partners. So I said, yeah, bring him in, and that's how that began.
Mm-hmm.
Was your experience with him better overall, Paul, than Tank's?
You know what? I always look back on like everything, right? From when things started to where it was, but we've had a couple of things transpire between us. Like when I coached Bonner, there's been some mishaps. There's been some things that have happened between us, but I want to specifically talk about one is when he was outside of uh, he wasn't wrestling. He had taken some time off. He wasn't doing anything, and this kind of got him back uh, into wrestling at the junior college level. But we had a little scrap outside in the uh, it was in the dirt in a driveway, a gravel driveway. He and we were scrapping, you know, and I was just like, kind of, what are you kind of doing type thing, you know? Um, and at that point, I was more of like a coach than anything. But when you got a coach that's out partying and doing things, that, and I mean, I don't want to get in too much deep into what it was, but it was some real partying, not with drugs and things like that. And so that's just not kind of the way you want to be around somebody or somebody to see. So I was kind of like, we had a few misunderstandings there. Um, I mean, I've never once said this person is like this or that person's like that, but we know between each other exactly how we are. And when you have several people in a group that's around you saying something, and the common denominator is you, like, hey, this person is this, and the common denominator is, oh well, you're that person, right? Then that's who you are. And me specifically, you'll find out through MMA, through these decades that I've been involved in it, that hey, I am who I am. And Tito's kind of made out his own reputation. And Dave is just the kind of guy that doesn't hold back any punches. You know what I mean? And he tells it like it is. And what he talks is the truth. Like, here's the one thing I know for sure about Tank. Now, it might be his version in a sense, but he's not a liar. When he says something, it's the truth. When he talks about things that have happened, it's the truth. When he says a person might be this way or be that way, to me, it's the truth just knowing him. Now, yeah, the person might say this or that or come back with some kind of rebuttal, but Tito himself, I mean, if I was to look at it, I'll just put it to you this way. And I'm kind of pissed off about this, Loopy. Okay. So you're going to hear this and you're probably going to see this podcast, and that's okay. Right. Because I got some love for you if you just answer your damn phone for other stuff. Right. But if I'm going to take a time out and text you and you don't text me back, okay, don't forget who I am. Don't let the gray hair fool you. You understand? Everybody's a man. You got to be a man. And if you're not the kind of person that someone can say a positive thing about you, right? Say positive things about you. And people that have known you say negative things about you, I tend to believe the people that are saying the negative things, if there's more than one. And it just bothers me about I'm not just talking about Tito. I'm talking about other fighters, and people are then in this game. All of a sudden they get in a couple fights and they're famous and they're somebody. And then they forget who you are. They forget that you're their coach. And this is how I was as a coach. And this is what I mean by that with Tito and any other fighter I've been around. If you're going to disrespect me, and what I call disrespect, then you better be ready to answer maybe the repercussions that are going to come up out of that, right? And all in all, when I look back on all the years, I can say this: I can look at myself in the mirror and go, "That's a straight dude." Now, I might have done some things to some people that I owe some amends to, but can't remember all of that. But the guys that I was with and the people that I trained, if we are separated, that separation didn't come from something that I did, right? And usually the people that are pulling off bad things and doing bad things, they repetitively do that. in our game in MMA, you'll hear about it. You'll hear about this guy doing this, or he or somebody didn't pay a trainer, or somebody lowballed the trainer, or or they're talking bad or down about it. It all comes out. It's such a small world, right? But I mean, if I had to scale things on a 1 to 10, if you're below a 5 on my scale, I won't even mention how I feel about you. And all I can say to him is, God bless you. You know what I mean? God bless you. But he ain't on a 5 out of 10 on my scale.
You mentioned
Huh?
Stephan Bonner. Stephan Bonner is a great guy. I've had experience with him before he passed away. Is there anything either of you guys, I don't know how much interaction Tank had with him, but he passed away way too young, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
I didn't have anything to do with him.
Yeah, I did. I got to spend some time with him, train him. He came down to Empire, and I trained him for the Tito fight, and that was really cool. He's a really solid guy. I go by this. Like I'm a trainer, so if you tell me you're going to do something, we never had a contract. We shook hands. We agreed up on X amount, and that's what I got paid, right? And to me, that's a stand-up guy, right? It's a stand-up guy. So, and the dealings that I did have with him was a really, really hard worker, right? And I've heard some things that he suffered with some stuff, like anybody, but there was nothing but positive things that came out of that relationship with Stephan Bonner. I mean, he goes down as a dude that I can say, you know what, that guy was 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. When it came to training, when it came to me as a coach, when it came to doing what he said he was going to do. So God bless that guy, man. R.I.P. That dude. He was a good person to me.
Well,
Tank,
that
did you
sounds
have
cool.
any contact with him?
No, you know what? I never had any action with him. Passing by at Paul's gym here and there, I'd say, "Hey, what's up?" That kind of thing. I went and watched his fight, and with Tito, and that was it. And nothing that I could make an assessment on.
Maybe Paul could confirm or deny this. Tank, you said in my interview the other day you only lost 2 bar fights. The one guy had a hammer. I think the other one was a gang against you or something. Could Paul and you guys answer this fan's question?
Well, Paul couldn't. He might know of it. He knows about it, but
I wasn't there. I've never seen you lose in a bar fight ever.
well, yeah. And the gang of people was a bunch of security guards, and Eddie, the guy that we were talking about, was in a fight with these guys from the East Coast, and it used to be called the Red Onion. It's actually got
Oh yeah.
its own fame. Everybody knew about the Red Onion, and I lived right around there. And I saw Wilt Chamberlain in there. Everybody went to his club out there. Guess it's called a club. But there's a bunch of East Coast guys with hockey jerseys on, and once again, they crossed my path, and I was trying to stay out of it because I knew people knew who I was, and I could get in trouble. And so Eddie, the guy that Paul got into it with, ended up fighting one of these guys with a hockey jersey on from the East Coast. They were there for us at the Red Onion. And Eddie isn't a big guy, but his heart and balls are. So he was, let's go. And he was fighting like their big guy with the jersey on. And he was on top. No, they were mixing it up. Anyways, Eddie took him down over a speed bump, and they were like going, yeah, this is going to be great. This little guy's going to get his ass handed to him. Well, at that point in time, everybody was jumping in and everything. I went for a suicide clothesline on the guy. And I took off running, to give Eddie some space, and I took his head off. He was on his knees. He was like in the mounted position. And back in the day, I had a rain spooner on. These things are awesome shirts. They're like my fight jerseys, spooner cloth. Anyways, I clotheslined him, and he went flying back, and everybody said, kill the guy in the shirt, flowered shirt or what have you. And so I was running in the parking lot, which there was a fight every night. I used to go drink. We wouldn't even go into the club. We just park outside and watch the fights as everybody left. And everybody could kill the guy in the shirt. And so everybody was trying to kill me, and they tackled me down, and the security handcuffed me. And this guy was kicking me in the face. And every time he kicked me in the face, I'd go, fuck you, motherfucker. And he'd kick me again. And I just keep on taking them boots. And that's when my head looked like a basketball. I ended up getting arrested that night with Eddie, and they took us to jail. And when I got out of jail, I got home, I went, whoa, I look like the Elephant Man. And then obviously the other one, and someone commented, and you said something about this, why were you having drinks with this guy that hit you with a hammer? The reason being is retribution. And he's the kind of coward that would have called the cops and done whatever and try to sue me because I was Tank. So I was just jockeying in for position to get one-on-one with that guy. I came really close, and I've come to figure out that he was aware of it. I come really close to getting what he deserved for his cowardly act. And he still walks around that town as a sucker punch king. I don't want to say his name, but I bet you Paul knows who he is. But yeah, so he's just a little clown. But I guess you know what they say, the best thing to do is live a better life. And I've done that. Superseded that. So those are the two fights that I lost. And trust me, no one ever, there have been some times when I was too drunk. I guess I could talk about this one. There's a lot of fights that I don't need to bring up, even though the statutes ran on it, but you see how that goes with everything with these things. Anyways, there's one guy, he wanted to fight me, and I was so drunk, and I got in on him. It was right in front of this nightclub, Tijuana Jones, I think it was called. And everybody was watching, and I was so drunk I couldn't even stand up. And I had him I had my hands around his waist, and I was behind him. And he starts yelling. I started inching up his ribs, and I got right underneath him, and he started firing these elbows into my face. And everybody's like going, oh man, that guy's eating some elbows. Anyways, it got broken up, and Eddie was there. Eddie used to run with me all the time. And he's all, Dave, man, what the hell's wrong with you? You can't let that happen. And I go, I know. And so he was maybe about 40 yards away, and I started yelling at him, and he stopped. He goes, come on. And so I jogged up to him and took it to him. And anyways, once again, I was in court for a unrelated thing. And once I got done standing in front of the judge, this guy comes walking up with me with an envelope and he goes, you are served. Turns out that it was a guy from the nightclub that was elbowing me in the face because I did a number on him after that. And he sued me and the bar and everything else. But yes, that's what happened. Like I said, it's brought up Wilt Chamberlain. It's like Wilt Chamberlain and his one night stands, man. I had so many fights. It was unbelievable. And it's no big deal. I don't care. If I had so many fights, I wasn't picking fights and bullying people. These guys were the bullies. I know it's a cliche. I used to bully the bullies, but I didn't even bully the bullies. I played the poor victim. Hey, man, who am I to sit here and go, do you know I can kick your ass? Do you think they would believe that? No, that's why they got it. That's for you negative comment clowns. I wasn't a bully. I don't care if you want to think I was a bully, go ahead. But all you're doing is talking about you must have been bullied at some point in time. I've never been bullied, ever, except by Paul. That's it.
Yeah, Paul, I know Chael Sonnen worked for you in your Hitman promotion, and Tank knows him too. Do you guys have any thoughts on him?
Oh, Chael's a stud. I really like Chael. He fought Babalu in the show, and what was crazy is, I don't want to get too much into that because I don't know how that statute of limitations is either with the athletic commission. But we were having a show, Is It Real in the Cage? And Chael was fighting Babalu, and it went into it was a close fight, but Chael had won, and they're predetermined bouts, meaning for me to do the show, I had to predetermine all the bouts, and I was exactly right on every one of them. I never once was wrong on my shows, and it wasn't that I fixed the fights, or I don't really want to get too much into that. You can read into it as you will, but anyway, Chael had fought Babalu, and he had beat him, and he had the belt, and we were giving out the belts, and Chael's like, it's my belt, and then Babalu was staying in the cage, and his whole team, and now all the Brazilians got together, and then, oh no, man, it was going to be a backstage bash again, and so, there was like, Dan Henderson was there, Randy Couture, there was a bunch of guys, and I didn't know who we really had as backup. And I was promoting the show as well as fighting in it as well. And I'm trying to pull this whole thing off. And then, but Chael had won. And at that time, Chael, to me, was one of the best 185 pound and 205 pound fighters at that time that we could find to even get into a show. So, and I've had other dealings with. I've ran into a few times when I see him. I just think I really like Chael. There's people, that you can, I'm going to tell you if I like him, if I don't like him, they might like me and might not. But Chael's a solid dude. He's a really cool guy.
I will tell you a Chael story that you probably won't hear from was it the original bad guy? Something like that. I think that's what he calls himself. Me and Paul, when I knew that I was going to be in this Ultimate, it was in Denver, I believe. So I needed to go train in altitude, and there's a heavyweight that Paul knew and I knew and everything else that worked out at BYU. And so we went there and stayed there for 5 weeks, give or take days or whatever. Anyways, so we trained with the wrestling team, and Mark Schultz was the world champion there. So it was awesome, to get to wrestle with a world champion. He pulls your game up, the whole 9 yards. Well, we got into practice, and I guess they had been talking amongst the team, and we walked in. It was right before the practice started, and Chael jumps up and at that time, he's a littler little guy type thing. He must have been like 160s maybe or something. And I was in the around 270 mark. Anyways, so he's wanting. He goes, "Come on, come on, come on, let's go! Takedowns, takedowns, takedown!" I'm like laughing, like like this guy's gonna. He's like playing around the character that he acts and is. And I'm like, really? Come on now. And I was leaning up against the wall before practice. And I go, okay, because he kept on pestering me, and I was prepared to smash him like a bug. Well, I go out there, it wasn't too intense, obviously. And sure enough, he shoots a low single and took me down in front of the whole team, the whole 9 yards. And I just go, oh my God, I can't believe that. And he got up and he's like, yes, yes. And he points to Mark Schultz because I told you I could do it. And I'm like, oh, wow, I can't believe that just happened. But yeah, that was my first memories of Chael. Low single.
Paul, I know you fought Frank Trigg in a bull ring, one of the greats in MMA too. Do you have any memories of that?
Man, that was, yeah. We Eddie and myself and another guy. I think it was Bobby Gamboa. We went up there, and it was so crazy because as we're into the fight, if you went out of the ring, but I just remember, dude, we went through a war, and towards the end of the fight, I don't even know if it was the second or third round, but it was near the end of the fight, and I had him in a guillotine, and he went out. Like his rear end and his legs, not his legs, but his rear end went out of it, and I had it, and it squeezed, and I figured I choked, like kind of choked him out. I can't really remember if I choked him. I think I did. And then, he got back up, but the ref said he was out of the ring. But I'm not sure if you've grappled, maybe you have grappled and stuff. But when you go everything you got and your arms are flooded, I hadn't trained. I said, I was getting ready to go. David got me a fight with Sakuraba. I didn't know that's who I was fighting, but up in Japan. And I go, I better get a warm-up fight before that, right? And so I just went and, did this fight, and it happened to be Frank Trigg. And I remember warming up, like getting ready, and I hadn't even trained. And I remember looking over at him and just seeing his ears and his face and watching him jump rope and going, what the hell? That's the guy I'm fighting, right? And I was thinking, holy shit, this guy looks like, he doesn't look like some average guy. You can kind of tell by glancing at a guy's face and his ears and everything. And so we went in and we had a war. It was a war. But after we got done, I went up to him. I mean, after it was outside of the ring, he came back in, and and I go, hey, bro, you win. And he's like, I won. He was all excited, that he had won. I go, I'm done. And just walked right out of the ring and just started puking outside of the ring. And as we were walking back, because I think Bobby got shellacked in his fight, and all the people in the bull ring were throwing water bottles at us, going, "You California quitters!" They were yelling at us, and we were just rolling. We were laughing, and we're all, "Screw you guys!" And they're throwing bottles and stuff at us. Then Eddie gets pissed, and dude, we ended up fighting with a bunch of people in the crowd, right? And a couple of the guys we ended up fighting with, they ended up coming backstage and kind of making up, and we ended up going out partying with them. But yeah, that was my experience with Frank Trigg.
That was back. That's how it went down back in the day. It
Yeah.
wasn't like nowadays. It's like a wrestling tournament. It was different then.
Yeah.
Hank, I know this is just gonna fire you up, but you got a hater on here saying Elaine and Big John have done more for MMA than everyone on this podcast. Well, I don't count myself anywhere near you guys, so I'll let you guys
All
respond
right.
to that. Maybe he has, maybe he
Well,
hasn't. I don't
what did Big John do for you there, pal? Is there any skill in dressing up like a zebra and going, let's get it on, let's get it on, are you ready or whatever? I don't even know. And everybody here, can you answer who was the last fight you had? I don't even remember it, but I do remember it because Paul was there. He came and got me on my deathbed when I was waiting for it. But I don't know who the ref was. Do you know who the ref was with George Foreman and Frazier? Do you know who the ref was? Big John is nothing but a liar, and Elaine is like a Karen. You know, he said something. I was just like, oh, he said, oh, I didn't check. Everything that he says about me is negative, if you ever notice. And I'm struggling to find something good about him, but I still can't. Anyways, he said, oh, I've never checked who Dave Abbott was or anything like that, right? That'd be against the law. In the same breath, he then goes, oh, yeah, but I asked my buddies down in HB if they knew who he was and everything else. If you never checked on me, why are you asking your buddies? What? You don't make any sense, John. Everything you say are red herrings. You broke up the fight. It's on video. Open your eyes. Those were the rules back in the days. There were no rules. And so for him to go in and break it up, just take me out of the picture. Randleman versus Boss Rudin. He goes in there and breaks it up because what? Because there's a bloody nose? He affects many fights. And he's biased and corrupt to what he likes because he went and did a jiu-jitsu class before anybody knew what it was. And you know, for you to sit there and back Big John, how come Big John isn't the ref anymore? I quit. I left the UFC because there was not going to be the UFC anymore. John McCain was banning it. I left. How come Big John's not there anymore? He's such a big popular guy and everything else. Well, how come he's not the ref at the UFC anymore? I don't know. And then there's one of the little podcasts. He's got this little toy-looking guy. I don't know his name, Josh or something. It doesn't matter what size you are or whatever. I used to have to sit around and watch little guys wrestle till my class. They're entertaining, but you know, when you're a little guy like that and your brain matches, don't bring up Campbell McLaren like and these guys argue like they've never had a college philosophy class in their life. They probably don't know what it is. And what's his name? Even Campbell McLaren said something that he's a sociopath. Dude, you must be a sociopath, not even a sociopath. You must be into hurting yourself. Was it a masochist or whatever? We'll get into that too. For bringing up Campbell McLaren's name, how come you think that nobody knows who Campbell McLaren is? He got shown the door quite early in that production. And his only thing I seen is bring up his head, pop his head up was the Tito fight against that Del Rio guy. Did you see what a clown show that was? That's who that guy's quoting. Oh, even Campbell McLaren. Are you kidding me? That's like saying, even Tito Ortiz says 2 + 2 is 5. And, you know, Let them go do whatever they do. Let me tell you something. This thing in it's called a red herring. And when I said he broke up the fight for no reason, he did. And then he starts arguing about all this nonsense, complete nonsense, about the moon is made of cheese. Who cares? Stick with the original argument. Did you not break us up? It's on tape. How can you not say that? And for him to make up all these excuses, just remember that tape and all those tapes came after the fight. So they could say whatever they wanted to say about that. And it's just amazing. He goes on and on. McCartney is just a piece of work. And what does he do now? Well, why does he have an expertise in fighting? Because he was an arm wrestler? No, he's got a bias because he wants jujitsu and skill to overtake what he is obviously not. Has he ever done anything fighting wise, combative wise? Like, did he ever go in the wrestling room in his whole life? No, I don't believe so. Or I think we would have heard about it. And then for him, after the Paul fight and the little skirmish, it was nothing more than a skirmish. For him to run around and play like his big, what is it? Oh, Big John, I'm the referee. These are fucking clowns that running around like saying, oh, Mills Lane or Richard Steele. Woo! He's a ref. Who cares? And he goes to the boss, whose owner then was Bob Meyerowitz, and he was chuckling, going, I got to get your knee surgery. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. You're still on contract. Don't even pay attention. It's just, and then for him to make some deal out of it, oh, I'm going to quit. Like, who are you to care? And I read in a thing, somebody, I'm quoting or paraphrasing, somebody wrote, and in so many years, they're going to know who you are. They're going to say, Big John who? Big John McCartney? And like, in his mind, what he must think of himself. Like, you know, I don't know anything about racing, but let's just sit here and go, oh, I changed the tires for Richard Petty's race car. Who cares? It's John is whatever. He did that. He tried to get me kicked out of the show. Obviously, it didn't work. And secondly, he affects fights like that cabbage fight where they stopped it on a cut. He goes, "Oh, are you all right?" And I go, "Yeah, but I've got this. It's called adrenaline. It's like a goop, and they put it over the cut of my eye." I go, "Yeah, but I got shit in my eye," meaning like wipe my eye off. Oh, stop the fight. Obviously, I got retribution. I went back to Hawaii and took him out. But that's the kind of stuff. Any little break, any little tweak, that's what he would do. I always had to smile and sit there and say, hey, I obviously am not going to fight again. But so that's why I will say things. But back in the day, I had to sit there and smile and go, hey, how you doing? Good for you. Like Paul has a good relationship with him, I guess, but whatever. That's just my point of view. I mean, it's pretty easy to see. Turn on the tape, and you'll see it. And then if you know the behind the scenes at the thing, and then these little bozos, clowns that sit there and talk about Campbell McLaren like he's some professor of the whole show. I believe he was shown the door. You figure it out. That's the guy I want to bring up as on our side. There's the rant. And on top of it all this CTE, stuff like that. Listen, I can reiterate this 1,000 times to you, but you know what? Oh, for some reason you don't like me. Do you think I lose sleep over it? No, I probably sleep sounder because of it. But it's documented from Cedars-Sinai, Beverly Hills. I died 5 fucking times on the table. I had over 6 strokes. I was in ICU over 120 days. For me, yeah, I have
Paul
trouble.
can confirm that, right? Just for anyone that doesn't know, I heard Paul. He was
Yeah,
there, like when they told you were gonna die, right?
I was there. Yeah, he gave me a text saying he was on his way out, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And when I saw him, he was hooked up. The only thing keeping you alive at that time, Dave, was that machine. And
That's
and
right.
and they were and Sally had said, don't think he's going to respond, or he doesn't, or sometimes come to for this or that. But when I got there, he came to, and I'm like, what's up, Stottle? And he was like, oh man, it's not good. And I'm like, and at this point, I was like, man, I just want to pray with you. You know what I mean? And I got to pray with him. And then there was this nurse and the people on the floor, because it was in like more than an ICU floor, because they actually have the dialysis machines and everything.
It was a surgical
Center. Yeah.
ICU floor.
Yeah, they could do
Where
it
they
right there on the
do
floor.
surgery right there on my bed.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then they were like, he's not gonna, he wasn't on a list and this and that. And Sally was really sad, he wasn't on the list. And then the guy had told me that day, he's like, no, somehow he got back on the list, right? I had called Sally and told her that, and she was like, Paul, stop messing with me, and I think she remembers that. I'm gonna have to talk to her about that, because that kind of came into my head the other day, and when I was listening to your podcast, and somehow or another, dude, you got on the list, and then it all worked out, and thank God you're here today, And I was gonna say this: there was a lot of like what you were saying, your things that we're talking about, but there's you get to hear someone's experience in that. But I'm not sure if but there's some people out there that have actually read the books. But I wanted to say this about it. We're in such a we've been kind of not racking our brains, but I'm like, when you've lived kind of this style and you've gotten to live around this kind of an era, it was just different, right? But when you physically were at the fight and all the fights in the bars and all the stuff, and you vividly, I vividly remember seeing teeth fly. I vividly remember hearing a loud explosion of a pull stick. I've seen a guy like in slow motion. It's weird when I fight. Sometimes it's in slow motion. It's almost in frames. It's kind of weird for me sometimes, but just like almost to the point of death, right? There's no one, I don't think, Stottle, that's going to be able to vividly bring that out in your books, other than like a Quentin Tarantino could, or this dude that I met that did the Narcos movie. I think it's Padilla. If you're out there and you're watching this, bro, I'm going to reach out to this guy today. But this guy, he did the Narcos movie and actually went in behind the scenes and got to interview people that were involved in it. You would need something like that for someone, because you're talking about these fights and the things that you did, but people have no idea what
That's right.
It's pretty crazy when you.
Well, I wasn't the jock. I got nothing wrong with Dudley Do Right, Dan Severn, but he could be great at his skill of wrestling. But if you've been in as many wrestling rooms as I have, you know who the tough guy is. You know that there's all different levels. You can go use your little wrestling skills so far, but when it's time to get down, when it gets dark and dirty, And that's the way it is. People call me arrogant and all that kind of stuff. I guess I rub people the wrong way. But listen, you walk in my shoes and done what I've done, you would understand. And all these little smart asses with their mouths, they have no idea. They made laws to protect you from people like me. Because if I could, I would.
They made new rules.
They make laws.
Yeah.
But
In prison.
anyways, my book, I'm glad you brought that book. That book is a novel. Check it out. And it's as true as a made-up story you can get.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And it's available on Amazon. The last guy I'll ask you about, Paul, because I know you got to get going, is Vitor Belfort. Of course, you helped train him, and Tank is very familiar with him. Could you share any insights about your experience?
Yeah, I can share some of that about Vitor. But hey, also too, I want to put a plug in out there for the stud getting ready to fight. Brian Ortega's getting ready. He filled in last minute against David Lopez. We're going out to Vegas here coming up this next week.
That's the guy you're coaching now, right, Paul?
Yeah. Brian's a stud. But Vitor Belfort, he's crazy. He's not crazy. They're just, I was driving up to Big Bear, working construction from 5 to 2, leaving the job site, driving from Corona all the way up the 330 to Big Bear every day, and then driving back home and doing the same thing. Trained them for 6 weeks like that. But I'd be working all day, and then I'd go back up there and get my stuff on and just, and back in that day, man, I could just go, right? And he ended up, getting shellacked by Randy. But, and then the other fight that he won, he cut his eye. But the experience with him was positive. It wasn't negative. What was negative about that I'll say is there was his investor at the time. And imagine, I'm driving up there, I'm going up, and this is one of those stories where, people, and Vitor probably doesn't even know this, but the investor who was supposed to pay me for this camp did not pay me. So I put in a 6-week camp, did not get paid for it. But I don't think that was anything towards Vitor. We never really talked about it after that. And I've never really even ever mentioned this on air or anything. I don't even know why I mentioned it. I probably shouldn't have. Well, actually, yeah, I should have, because that investor would know who he is, a punk. But it didn't have anything to do with that. I actually created a bond with Vitor. We get along with each other to this day. And he had all these guys around him, and I mentioned this. There was all these people, sponsors, so many people, right? And then after he got beat up by Randy, and the cage was full of blood, if you remember that fight, he was covered from head to toe in blood. And he was just shellacked, and we were going in the ambulance from that to the hospital. It made me think about my fight in Puerto Rico, and like there wasn't no question if he was going in an ambulance. He needed to, and he was just laying there. And I just remember him being so down, and I was in my mind, I'm like, where are all those people now? You know what I mean? And I'm like, you got to take your ass whoopings like a man. You know what I mean? Take your wins and losses the same way. Either you're getting ready for your next fight, or you're hanging up your gloves. One or the other. And he took it. He took it on the chin. My experience with him overall, he's another one of the guys that are above the 5 out of 10. That I would say that I can actually break bread with. And there's very few, but there's only one. I want to say this. There's only one guy I've known up to this point today, not talking about the Brian Ortegas or anybody that I'm training right now. I'm talking from the past, not this future that I'm involved in. There's one guy only that I would sit and break bread with, and that has never screwed me over, ever, and that I have actually lived some of my best life with, and it's just been an honor and a privilege. I don't get very often times to say this, bro, and we probably don't got too much longer. You know what I mean? We'll probably live and torture ourselves out. But I really, man, you're the reason I got into this, Tank, Dave. And dude, it's always been an honor and a privilege. And you're one of my friends I can look across at. And there's no such thing as best friends or this friend. There's just a friend, someone you can shake hands with and know that that man has got his word. And not only does he's got his word, but he's got his balls and he's got his, back your ass up. And you've never once failed me on that, bro. Never. Appreciate you, you know?
Well, I appreciate that you saying that. That's nice of you to say that. And wow, kind of blew me away.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's what can I say, the truth, but man, you have a friend of me, and unless you screw me over, then I'll always be there for you.
Yep. Yeah. Good deal. I didn't mean to get you all tucked up.
No,
I'll give you a kiss when I see you.
yeah, we know how that goes. But you don't kiss and tell. Anyways, yeah, right on. Paul, get down. Anyways,
Paul, this is the fight, Paul, right? Brian Ortigas versus Diego Lopez. Brian Ortiga, you're representing Ortiga now.
Yeah, Ortega. Yeah, he's the number 3 ranked. So it goes right now. Topuria is the champ. Then you got Volkanovski, right? Who Topuria knocked out. Then you got Max Holloway that just knocked out in the BMF title and won it. Gaethje, and then you got Brian Ortega, and it's a loaded stack. Like there's some really really solid dudes there, but Brian is, man, he's different level. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys like Tank. He reminds me of Tank in this way that if you call him, like, dude, 2 weeks notice, you know what I mean? And he's like, Coach, what do you think? And talking to us and Tiki, the manager, you know what I mean? I'm like, bro, we're ready to go all the time. Like, ding, 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 ring that bell. We're ready to go. And he's like, I'm in. You know what I mean? And that's just the way he is. He's that kind of kid.
He's a last minute fill in then, right?
He what?
Brian Ortega's a last minute fill in.
Yeah.
He's filling in.
Yeah, he's filling in.
See, he's a tough guy. It's about getting out and doing it.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
UFC 303, right? That's the one that McGregor was supposed to be on.
Yeah, McGregor was supposed to be on. Brian's kind of saving the card in a sense, but because he's very popular. But he that kid, like, and Tank's saying it, you know what I mean? That says a lot. This kid's like, kind of almost top 10-ish, right? But Brian's putting not only his reputation, but everything on the line, right? And a lot of people won't take that fight. These young.
Yeah, well, tell him from experience. It'll come back to haunt you.
Yeah. Yep.
You know how many fights I've lost because I took the last minute thing, but I was burning the candle at both ends, and it's a different scene for him.
Yeah, that was a different scene. So he's ready.
Tell him about my last fight that you worked my corner with.
Oh yeah, this is
how I was warming up on the bed in my room.
Yeah, so I'm like, I went up there with him, and I was like, what? I know you said a thing one time, Stottle, about the leaving Las Vegas. You referenced that, but it was kind of similar, dude, for me. Like, I'm looking at you on the bed. You're not warming up. Bro, I think if they did an alcohol blood test on you, it would have been blowing a high 2.6, maybe 2.7.
No,
just because I'm saying
alcohol
poisoning in your blood. You weren't drinking. I'm just saying.
I was definitely sick.
Yeah, you were just sick.
Yeah.
Your body was swollen. There's no way you could have been in that.
No one even knows what we're talking about, but it was my last fight at Indian Casino, and I tried to fight Severin a couple months before that, and I couldn't pass the physical, and so I was the headliner of the show, and I had like an hour and a half to be down there behind the curtains. I said, "Hey man, I'm going back to my room." I went up to my room and laid down on my bed, and I told Paul to come get me 10 minutes before the show. And at that point in time, I was okay with dying in the cage. And
you were close. You were close.
I was going to say, and then
no,
I
really,
went out
you
there.
were physically, you were close, Dave, to dying. And now
Yeah,
that I know what
I
you were
don't
going
think that
through,
anybody else would have gotten in the
yeah.
cage.
Now that I know that the actual prognosis and the diagnosis, I guess you'd say, of what you were diagnosed with and what you went through, now I know there's no way you should have been in that cage at all. And you just, yeah, it's just crazy. It's crazy to me, you know. But hey, that's it. That's
Well,
you know.
whatever. I made it.
That'll be
Anyways,
the next
and
book.
oh, absolutely. I've got 4 in my head.
Nice. Yeah.
The next one's going to be called Crazy Train. That's where Walter Fox goes to the NHB and takes over the whole production of the show and becomes the show. I know it's diluted.
Those books are on Amazon, right, Tank? For anyone who wants to buy those books, they can go to Amazon and get them. And Paul's man is fighting on the next UFC. I'll let you guys close this down here with however you want to wrap it up.
Wow. Okay, I'll start. Well, hey, man, it's not CTE. It's called 5 strokes. But I'm here talking that says something in itself. Anyways, I love this whole sport. I love my whole life. Everything's been awesome. And Paul, I'm glad that you were a big part of it, especially this part. And nothing but love for you, brother.
Right on, brother. Same thing. Yeah. It's cool to be on here. Cool to be on here. Yep. Likewise. It's been good. A lot of good stuff. A lot of good shit to come. Hey, we're gonna go to Vegas. You're gonna go to the fight, right, Stottle?
Yeah, well, I'll talk to you about it. I'm planning on it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll talk to you about it.
That should be pretty cool.
Planning on it.